Something unusual is happening around you, and you can feel it even if you cannot fully explain it. There are moments in life when time seems ordinary, when days pass quietly and nothing appears to change. And then there are moments when something shifts beneath the surface, as if a silent turning point is approaching. March 18 carries that feeling, not because a date itself holds magic, but because sometimes a moment arrives when the patterns of your life begin to rearrange. Have you noticed the subtle signals lately? The thoughts that keep returning, the realizations that refuse to fade, the quiet sense that you are standing on the edge of something new. For a long time you may have felt overlooked, misunderstood, or even disconnected from the path everyone else seemed to follow so easily. While others rushed forward, you were forced to slow down. While others were celebrated, you were often questioned. But what if that delay was never punishment? What if it was preparation? Many people move through life following noise. They chase approval, validation, and attention. Yet there are individuals who are shaped differently. They are not built for the crowd. Their journey often requires distance, reflection, and moments of deep solitude. At first, that isolation can feel heavy. It can make you question yourself. It can make you wonder if you somehow missed the road everyone else took. But what if you were never meant to walk that road? Think about the experiences that forced you to grow earlier than others. The challenges that demanded strength when you felt you had none. The silence that pushed you inward, where you began to understand your own thoughts, your own values, and your own direction. Those moments were not random. They were shaping something inside you that cannot be rushed. Every life carries seasons. There are seasons of building, seasons of questioning, and seasons of awakening. Sometimes the most powerful shifts begin quietly, long before the outside world notices anything different. A person begins to see clearly. Their perspective changes. Their patience deepens, and suddenly, the same world that once felt confusing begins to make sense. Have you felt that clarity forming lately? Perhaps situations that once drained your energy are losing their power over you. Perhaps you are starting to recognize patterns in people, in choices, and even in yourself. Awareness is not always comfortable, but it is powerful. Once you see clearly, you cannot return to the illusions that once surrounded you. And this is why certain moments in life feel different. March 18 can represent a turning point, not because the universe suddenly chooses favorites, but because there are moments when preparation meets opportunity. After long periods of reflection and growth, a person begins to step into a new phase of their life. The doubts that once held them back start to weaken. The direction that once felt hidden becomes visible. The question is not whether change is possible. Change is always possible. The real question is whether you are ready to recognize it when it arrives. For many people, change feels loud and dramatic. They expect transformation to arrive with clear signs, sudden announcements, or immediate recognition from the world around them. But in reality, the most meaningful shifts often happen quietly. They begin within the way you think, the way you observe, and the way you respond to life's challenges. Think back to the version of yourself from a few years ago. The way you saw the world then may have been very different from the way you see it now. Experiences reshape us. Hard moments teach lessons that comfort never could. And slowly, without realizing it at first, you begin to outgrow the patterns that once defined you. This process can feel confusing. Sometimes it even feels lonely. When your awareness begins to change, the environments that once felt familiar may suddenly feel different. Conversations that once interested you may now feel empty. Situations you once tolerated may no longer sit right with your values. It can create a strange feeling, as if you are standing between two versions of life, one you are leaving behind, and another that has not fully appeared yet. Have you felt that space in between? That in-between stage is not a mistake. It is a transition. Growth rarely happens all at once. It unfolds layer by layer, revealing new understanding as you move forward. During this time, patience becomes one of the most important qualities a person can develop. The world often celebrates quick success and visible achievements, yet real transformation is usually slow and deeply personal. It is the quiet discipline of choosing wisdom over impulse. It is the decision to walk away from negativity rather than reacting to it. It is the strength to remain steady even when circumstances feel uncertain. And this is where many people misunderstand the journey of individuals who follow a deeper path of awareness. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening. Others may assume you are stuck, delayed, or falling behind. But what they cannot see is the inner development taking place beneath the surface. A tree does not grow strong simply because its branches reach the sky. Its strength comes from the roots expanding deep into the ground where no one can see them. In the same way, the unseen work happening within you is building a foundation for the future. So why does March 18th feel significant? Because there are moments when the internal growth you have been cultivating begins to align with external opportunities. It is the moment when patience starts to reveal its value. The lessons you learned through difficult experiences begin to guide your decisions with clarity. The self-doubt that once whispered in your mind grows quieter, replaced by a calm sense of direction. This does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. Challenges will always exist, but something inside you becomes steadier. You begin to trust your judgment more. You start recognizing which paths lead to growth and which ones only create distraction. And when that awareness strengthens, everything changes, not overnight, but in a way that cannot be reversed. Because once a person truly sees their path, they no longer wander the same way again. There comes a point in life when you begin to notice something powerful. The struggles that once felt meaningless start to reveal their purpose. Experiences that once seemed unfair begin to make sense in a different light. Not because the pain itself was necessary, but because what you learned from it quietly reshaped the person you have become. Many people spend years trying to avoid discomfort. They move away from difficult conversations, hard decisions, and moments that challenge their perspective. But growth rarely happens inside comfort. It happens in the moments when you are forced to reflect, when circumstances ask more from you than you expected to give. And when you survive those moments, something changes. You begin to understand your own resilience. You start recognizing strengths that were invisible before. The patience you develop during uncertain times becomes one of your greatest advantages. The clarity you gained through reflection begins guiding your choices. Think about how many times life slowed you down when you wanted to rush forward. At the time, it may have felt frustrating. You might have wondered why things were not moving the way you hoped. Yet looking back now, those pauses often protected you from paths that were never meant for your growth. Sometimes delay is not denial. Sometimes it is redirection. This is why certain dates or moments can feel symbolic. They remind us to pause and reflect on where we stand in our journey. March 18 can represent a moment like that, a moment of awareness, where you begin to see how far you have come and where your path may now be leading. But the shift does not happen because of a date alone. It happens because of the person you have become along the way. Over time, you may have noticed your priorities changing. The things that once felt urgent no longer hold the same power over you. Approval from others becomes less important than staying true to your values. Noise and distraction begin to lose their influence as you focus more on what genuinely matters. This kind of clarity is rare. It takes patience to develop and courage to maintain. The world is full of opinions, expectations, and pressures that try to shape the direction of your life. It is easy to follow those voices without questioning them. Yet, the individuals who grow the most are often the ones who pause long enough to listen to their own conscience and reflect deeply on their decisions. Have you noticed how much your perspective has evolved? Perhaps you now recognize patterns in people's behavior that you once overlooked. Perhaps you have learned when to speak and when silence carries more wisdom. Perhaps you have realized that not every battle deserves your energy. These realizations are not small things. They are signs of maturity and awareness developing over time. And when a person reaches this stage, something remarkable begins to happen. Their decisions become more intentional. Their presence becomes calmer. Their direction becomes clearer. They no longer feel the same urgency to prove themselves to the world. Instead, they focus on building a life that reflects their principles and their understanding. When that shift takes place internally, the external world often begins to respond in unexpected ways. Opportunities appear where confusion once existed. Connections form with people who share deeper values. Doors open that once seemed permanently closed. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you are now prepared to walk through those doors with wisdom and steadiness. And this is where the real transformation begins to reveal itself. Not as a sudden miracle, not as an overnight success story, but as a quiet realization that the person you once were is no longer the person standing here today. There was a time when uncertainty may have dominated your thoughts. You questioned your direction. You wondered whether the effort you were putting into your growth would ever lead anywhere meaningful. At times it may have felt like you were moving through life without clear recognition, as if your progress existed only in silence. But something important was happening during that silence. Every moment of reflection strengthened your awareness. Every challenge refined your patience. Every difficult experience sharpened your understanding of people, choices, and consequences. While the outside world continued rushing forward, you were building something deeper, an inner stability that cannot easily be shaken. Now imagine standing at a point where all of those lessons begin to come together. This is why symbolic turning points matter. They give you a moment to pause and recognize how much has changed within you. March 18 can represent that pause, a moment to step back and acknowledge the journey that shaped your mindset, your resilience, and your sense of purpose. Ask yourself an honest question. If the version of you from the past could see the person you are today, what would they notice first? They might see someone who no longer reacts to every distraction. They might see someone who thinks carefully before speaking, someone who observes more deeply, someone who values peace of mind more than temporary approval. Most importantly, they might see someone who understands that real growth is not measured by noise or attention, but by clarity and integrity. This awareness changes the way you approach the future. Instead of chasing every opportunity, you begin choosing the ones that align with your values. Instead of allowing every opinion to influence your direction, you learn to listen, reflect, and then decide for yourself. Instead of feeling pressured to prove your worth, you quietly focus on becoming the best version of yourself. And when you reach that stage, life begins to move differently. Opportunities often appear when preparation meets the right moment. Conversations open doors you did not expect. Ideas that once felt distant suddenly feel possible. None of this happens because you demanded it from the world. It happens because your mindset has reached a level of readiness. That is the deeper message behind moments like this. The real shift is not about a single day. It is about recognizing that the work you have been doing internally is preparing you for the next chapter of your life. The patience you practiced, the wisdom you gained, and the discipline you developed are all part of that preparation. So when March 18 arrives, do not simply treat it as another day passing on the calendar. Use it as a reminder that growth is real, that resilience matters, that the quiet effort you invest in becoming a better, wiser, and more thoughtful person is never wasted, because the moment you truly recognize your own development is the moment everything begins to change. Not just around you, but within you, and that is where the most meaningful transformation always begins. And as you continue forward, another realization begins to settle in quietly. Real change is not something that arrives once and then stays frozen in time. It is something that continues unfolding as long as you remain aware, reflective, and willing to grow. Many people imagine transformation as a final destination. They believe that one day everything will suddenly make sense and all uncertainty will disappear. But life rarely works that way. Growth is not a single moment of arrival. It is a continuous process of learning, adjusting, and refining the way you move through the world. What truly matters is that you have reached a stage where you are no longer moving blindly. You observe more carefully. You think more deeply. You recognize the difference between distractions that pull you away from your values and opportunities that genuinely support your progress. This awareness is not something that can be easily taken from you once it develops. Think about how powerful that is. There was a time when the opinions of others may have shaped many of your decisions. You might have worried about fitting into expectations that never truly reflected who you were. You may have felt pressure to prove yourself in environments that never appreciated your perspective. But now something is different. You are beginning to understand that your path does not have to mirror anyone else's journey. Each person moves through life with different experiences, different lessons, and different responsibilities. Comparing your progress to someone else's timeline only creates unnecessary frustration. Instead, you are learning to measure your growth in a more meaningful way. Are you more patient than you were before? Are you more thoughtful in your decisions? Do you respond to challenges with greater calm and clarity than you once did? If the answer to those questions is yes, then progress is already happening. Moments like March 18 serve as reminders that life is constantly inviting you to step into the next version of yourself. Not a perfect version and not a finished version, but a wiser and more aware one. The experiences ahead will continue to test your patience, strengthen your judgment, and expand your understanding. And that is not something to fear. Every challenge carries the potential for deeper insight. Every difficult situation holds an opportunity to apply the wisdom you have gained. The difference now is that you are approaching life with greater awareness, and that awareness changes everything. You begin to notice patterns earlier. You learn when to act and when to step back. You understand that silence can sometimes be more powerful than reaction. These quiet skills shape the direction of your future in ways that dramatic moments rarely do. So as this new phase unfolds, remember something important. The most significant transformations rarely demand attention. They happen gradually, through consistent effort and thoughtful choices. Day by day, decision by decision, you continue building a life that reflects your values and your understanding. And one day, you may look back and realize that the turning point you were waiting for was never a single dramatic event. It was the moment you chose to grow with patience, move with awareness, and trust that the effort you invest in becoming a better person will always lead you somewhere meaningful.